Back here, and I want to thank Charlie Calello for being part of this first segment experience here at WPAT Radio. And what did you like most about working with Tom Austin on this book? I know you've had so much history and so many stories to tell. What kind of what would you like to share tonight about working with Tom and about
Take it easy on the show.
and about the book, about people should get the book, Four Seasons Arrangements?
One of the things I wanted to accomplish with writing the book was I noticed that most people that write books about their lives, it's I, me. And for all the hit records that I had, I couldn't have made them alone. There were always people that were involved. I couldn't say that I was responsible for anybody's career. The fact was, I recognize the fact that I was given a gift. I do have a degree of talent, but the fact is that no one person really is the end all when it comes time to doing that. And I did not want to come off by saying, look what I accomplished. I did this, that, and the other thing, because it really wasn't that way. I knew I had a craft, and I developed a craft, and I worked at it, and I was fortunate enough to do it pretty much all my life. Tom recognized that. He recognized the fact that I didn't want it to be all about Charlie. And plus the other thing is that, usually people want to hear the negative stories about people. I owe Frankie my career. If it wasn't for Frankie Valli, I would have never had a shot. He introduced me to my wife 38 years ago.
Wow.
He was sitting over there, Clay.
Fantastic.
And the history that I have with Frankie goes, I know him since I'm 20 years old. I was just 80, so I know him 60 years. And I wanted to tell the story about the people the way I knew the people. Bob Gaudio's a very quiet kind of guy. He's not very social in many respects, but he's a brilliant songwriter. In fact, most of the people I know think he's one of the best songwriters they know.
But he's not aloof as he was portrayed in Jersey Boys, correct?
No.
No.
He was. The man was brilliant, and you put Gaudio together with me, with Bob Crew, with Frankie Valli, and that synergy that we had was it just was magical. It was magic, and every one of us played a part in the success. We were like cogs in a wheel, and to write a book and have it display the really truth about what took place, who did what, where, and how they were successful, and I think we accomplished that. And what I liked about the fact was that Tom was able to pick up the fact and turn it into something that really was just not a Charlie Calello story, but it was just like a really good story about the struggle of making records, being in the business, the negativity from the business itself, and surviving through it.
How about Birdland? You want to maybe talk a little bit about this experience coming up?
This is going to be fun to play Birdland. When I was 18 years old, I went to Birdland to see Quincy with Sarah Vaughan, and I went up to him and I said, "Do you teach? I want to take arranging lessons." And now here I am 80 years old. I'm going to play Birdland with my band.
Wow.
And Tommy Sellers, who is here, and Nicholas King is also going to join us.
Well, thanks for coming down here tonight and sharing. This is just a wonderful interview that needs at least maybe 8 or 10 more interviews. So at least it's an eye opener. We're beginning to talk a little bit about the book and a little bit about some of these great people that you've worked with over the years. And thanks to Mr. Tom Austin. And I'm glad that you could be here tonight. And I know you worked with Frankie Avalon over the years, and it's been great to have you here tonight with Charlie and to share some of these great moments and stories. And
totally enjoyed coming here, Teddy, always, to see you and Jim Petrecca, and especially a night like this. Charlie lives in Florida, and to get him up here, well, of course, he's got some big things to do in town, I just want to leave my little segment here with saying one thing. We took this book, and we didn't finish his life story. we took it to a certain point, but we never mentioned all of his gold records in country and Western music.
So is that the next book, Tom?
Well, Charlie's saying he's got a couple of ideas for books, and I'm saying, what am I going to do on Wednesday morning if he doesn't start in again? So-
Well, you know, for example, I wrote the strings on Bruce Springsteen's Jungle Land.
Yeah, that was my next and final question to you. What was it like meeting Bruce Springsteen, and what was it like working with him?
That's a funny story, and if you want to take the time, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, why don't you do it, because that's a great one. Then we have Mr. Rod Thomas coming up, and he's going to actually play live on the radio here on WPAT and share some of his great music, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Rod coming up here soon.
I took a sabbatical from the business, and I came back in 73, and Mickey Eichner was head of Columbia Records, and he called me. He says they just signed this kid from Jersey, and he's making a record, and he wants to put strings on the record, so we want you to go and meet with him. So I went over there. I went over to the studio. I went to the record plant, and he was recording, and he said that he wanted to sit with me while I wrote the strings. Well, it wasn't uncommon. A lot of artists wanted to participate in listening, and we made an appointment to meet at 11 o'clock in the morning the following day. So I had a session, and I went to the session. Then I went home and I had to write. I had to write something that I had to do in a couple of days, and I got up late. And I got up at like 9:45. I'm in Jersey now. How am I going to make an 11 o'clock appointment? So my secretary calls and says, you have someone waiting at your office. So I get there, and she says, do you know who you're keeping waiting? He says, it's Bruce Springsteen. And I didn't know who he was. I just knew that he was some kid that was recording for Columbia Records. So I said, where is he? He was walking the halls. I had an office on 666. He was walking the halls to stay awake. He had to stay awake up all night. I didn't realize this. In order for him to make an 11 o'clock an appointment, he recorded all night. So he got finished like at 7 in the morning. So he was hanging around. So we sat down. He got in the room. So I was so embarrassed. I put the tape on. I said, now, Bruce, what do you hear? And Bruce looked at the tape recorder, and he's listening, and he was motioning with his hands like this. And I said, well, let me run it back. And so after he did that for about maybe 4 or 5 minutes, he says, you write it, man, you write it. What was really funny about it, I didn't realize how brilliant he was until I went home and actually listened to the song. Usually it took me about an hour, maybe 2 hours to write a string arrangement. I sat in my house from 10 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning, and I couldn't write a note on Jungle Land. I just couldn't figure out what. Then all of a sudden it came, and I finished. And I said to myself, "This guy is
He's going
huge.
places.
He's brilliant. I mean, just to listen to the story and try to capture it and wait for the record to tell you what it needed. It was an experience I'll never forget."
Well, this has been quite an experience I'll never forget, too. This is one of the greatest shows that we've had here in 8 years. Thanks, Tom Austin. Thanks, Charlie Calello. Thanks, Charlie's family. Thanks, everybody in the studio audience. And Tom, and Patrick, and then Jim, Petrecca Productions. Let's go to one final song. Did you want to say something about An Angel Cried?
It was the first orchestral record that I wrote for a record. For a record, it was and we did it all with guys from my band, from the Victorians. No studio musicians, and it was the first time I wrote for strings on a record. Scared to death, and I was 20 years old.
Let's hear it. WPAT. Okay. We're done. I'm going to stop this.